The issue of proper child rearing is an important, yet rarely debated social issue, with implications affecting both children and adults. One of the most important variables in a child rearing philosophy is whether the philosophy values discipline or love more highly. A philosophy that values discipline above love is one in which love may be denied for the purpose of promoting discipline, particularly through withheld affection or through corporal punishment. Most of today's leading authorities recommend that discipline be valued above love for raising children, especially boys. However, most of these commentators, such as James Dobson, base their child-rearing philosophies not on sound research studying the happiness and social success of the children, but on one particular interpretation of religious texts. Studies have shown that these ideas about child rearing, far from producing happy, competent adults, in fact, do serious harm to children raised under their influence. Indeed, a child rearing philosophy that values discipline above love fails both philosophical and a pragmatic test. From a practical perspective, a child rearing technique can be considered successful if the child has generally positive memories of childhood and goes on to be a valuable member of society, as measured through such traits as honesty, compassion, and initiative. Most discipline-based child rearing philosophies fail on precisely these grounds. It needs little argument that most children do not have happy memories of physical discipline, but the denial of affection can also be a powerfully traumatic act. Children who are told that they run the risk of losing a parent's love also grow up to be nervous, clingy adults, prone to pretending that problems do not exist, in lieu of risking the alienation of affection. Further, child-rearing research has come down strongly on the side of a care-based parenting method. Studies show that, contra Dobson et al., harsh punishment for disobedience does not create a powerful sense of self-discipline. Instead, it promotes adults who are guided by punishment rather than conscience. To the contrary, children who are raised with compassion and love, though not without a due measure of discipline, tend to behave towards others in a compassionate and loving manner. Philosophically, the discipline-based child-rearing philosophy also comes up short. Physical coercion as a valid means of achieving one's objectives is never a good lesson to teach. Moreover, some would argue that it is simply morally wrong to harm a child, whether it is with the intent of promoting discipline or not, since such behavior would not be tolerated in a non-disciplined context. There is no reason to believe it acceptable in a disciplined context, especially when there is no solid evidence that it has any beneficial effects. It is also unsatisfactory that strict disciplined parenting methodology presupposes the need to be even more strict and firm with male children than with female children, without evidence for substantial behavioral differences between male and female prepubescent children. There is no reason to believe that their development would require radically different parenting strategies. I do not wish to argue that discipline should be avoided. Completely lax parenting is just as bad as domineering parenting. However, parental discipline must always come second to love. Parents must meet the physical and emotional needs of children, even disobedient ones, under all circumstances. The good parent, having set boundaries, can make sure that the child is free to explore within themselves and to deal adequately with the challenges beyond the home, simply by setting the positive example of treating the child with affection, care, and respect. And that is the end of my answer. Do you want to hear another example? I mean, another answer to this question?
Cũng được mà.
Guys, okay.
Có.
So, talk a little bit more about this topic from, a kind of, using different words. Now, here's my answer. There is no rule book for being a good parent, so deciding on the best approach to take with one's own kids is quite likely a great challenge. Does the ideal parent take a firm yet gentle hand with her or his child, using discipline to instill good behavior? Or is being more of a friend to one's child a more effective approach? Based on my own upbringing and observations, I contend that the answer to this seemingly black and white issue is painted in shades of gray. One does not have to have children to get a sense of how they are guided toward acceptable behavior. Think of the classroom experience. Teachers who try too hard to be their students' pal, risking allowing their children to take advantage, and in worst-case scenarios, plummet the classroom into chaos. Teachers who are too strict may stimulate resentment in their classroom, in their students, which can lead to a resistance to learning out of spite or even fear. Parenting according to one such strict discipline might have similar results. When I was a child, my best friend had decidedly authoritarian parents. She was never allowed to go out on school days, always reprimanded when she spoke without being spoken to, and grounded for the slightest infraction against her parents' considerable list of rules. Furthermore, her parents never made an effort to understand or share in their daughter's interests, maintaining a sort of, familial hierarchy, and that placed themselves at the top of the pyramid and their daughter at the bottom. Perhaps, predictably, my friend grew up to be an excessively rebellious person who spent her teenage years in and out of trouble. Another friend was allowed to complete green light from his parents. There was never any discipline or structure. As a very young child, he was allowed to stay awake watching television with his parents until all else, and even decide whether or not he wanted to attend school on a given day. Despite his extremely dissimilar upbringing, this friend ended up following a very similar path to that of my friend who grew up under extreme authoritarian rule. In contrast, my own upbringing exhibited those shades of gray. My parents had their rules, and breaking them was generally a punishable offense. But we, also enjoyed a genuine friendship based on shared interests, good humor, and quality time, as all friendships are. These two approaches were not mutually exclusive. For example, if I acted up while my mother and I were playing baseball, I knew that my friend might instantly transform into my discipliner, and I never felt any unnatural conflicts because of that dual role. That being said, I must admit to the limitations of these few examples and reiterate that there is no rule book for good parenting. What works for one child may not work for another. So perhaps the ideal approach to, parenting, teaching, or dealing with children in any capacity is flexibility. My own experiences have taught me that an excellent parent is as, prepared to be strict as he or she is prepared to be a friend. But if a child needs one approach more than the other, a parent must be willing to adapt accordingly. And that is the end of my answer. So actually, there are two answers in this speech.